all of our segments of this podcast, and we'll make sure that you get how to recognize your muscle imbalances, what they are, and what to do to make sure that you overcome them with prioritizing your strength training in certain ways. So I'm Miles Beccia, your host for today. And again, I know directly about these muscle imbalances from when I was 13 years old, and I broke both my legs in a car accident. So I obviously, after spending 4 months in the hospital through multiple surgeries, I had to, in the mid 1980s, I had to overcome first learn how to walk again and get the muscles back into the legs, and then of course overcome a lot of muscle imbalances in order to play competitive college sports again, which is what I accomplished in both track and field and football for my University of Massachusetts Lowell. So in becoming a health and human performance specialist, and again a bachelor's degree in science in that, I had to learn many attributes of our health and fitness, and of course one of the main things of that is what strength training does for you, what cardiovascular fitness does for you. So that's what we cover in the exercise science crash course. And in today's episode in particular, we're going to look at what muscle imbalances are, how to recognize them, and why they happen. And of course, the important part is to what to do with your strengthening and your mobility to make sure that you can recognize them and overcome them. Because everything is in your control here. Everything is possible for you to recognize them. Sometimes we need help. Obviously, playing college sports, and even coming out of the hospital, I had physical therapy. So physical therapists know how the body's supposed to move, and they can help us overcome some of these tightnesses, these immobilities. And as we get into this segment, you're going to see sometimes it's just the cause of an injury that causes the muscle imbalance itself. But we'll get into those causes in just a minute. What are the muscle imbalances that I'm going to talk about? Well, that's where you have stronger muscles on your right, maybe front side, and they're not the same strength on your left front side, the shoulder, the arm muscle. And you might be trying to do some strengthening or even just daily tasks, and you recognize that your right shoulder is much more dominant and your right arm is much more dominant than your left. And you say, well, what should I do about that? Well, that's where we're going to look at, is the back side of the shoulder the problem, or is the back side of the leg or the front side of the leg? Where are those muscle imbalances? You could also be, into a lot of aerobic activity, and your lower body is now more dominant than your upper body. So we want to balance the top and the bottom, the left and the right, in the front and the back. Those are where your muscle imbalances are. Sometimes it's right around a joint. Sometimes it's a whole muscle group. Sometimes it's a smaller muscle. Okay, and that's where we're going to look at the signs of where a muscle imbalance is. So that's what they are: side to side, front to back, top to bottom, small group, large group. Let's dive into a little bit more now, because you have to be able to focus on that. Maybe you're already thinking about one you have now, that if you just get into a little bit better strength training with that, it'll get much better. So now, how do they develop, right? So as I said, they may develop due to you're shooting a lot of basketball and you're shooting with your right side a lot, or you're doing a repetitive exercise, a repetitive motion for that, and all of a sudden you notice that your left side, if you do something strength training wise, your left side can't do as many as your right side can. So you've developed that muscle imbalance because of that repetitive movement. Okay. Other times, like as I've said, you get a muscle imbalance not because of repetitive movement, because of an injury. And an injury occurs, one side gets tightened and shuts down, the other side overcompensates, and then all of a sudden you're left with this imbalance of muscle strength, one side, and also muscle mobility. And that again, that's where everything has to come into sometimes seeking professional advice from a physical therapist, just like I had done so many times. Even just recently, I had some scar tissue due to the car accident recognized by my physical therapist, because I was not moving properly and landing properly on my foot. So that was caused by some scar tissue up in my leg from an accident, obviously many, many years ago. And I played through all that through college, but I didn't know it until later on that that scar tissue was actually limiting my mobility and causing some muscle imbalances. So it is repetitive. We might have bad posture. Bad posture occurs, of course, when we're doing this all the time. We're driving or we're reading, we're in school a lot, we're sitting, and those that bad posture starts to cause a distinct positioning that we're having, and we're not having proper positioning because of our posture. And then when we do things like repetitive motion or working out or things, then that posture is accentuated and it's not being held properly in the right spot. Obviously, we want to make sure our posture is really good throughout our life and we have excellent mobility throughout our life. And most importantly, when we're trying to get our personal best. That's what you're here for the exercise science crash course, is to get your personal best. I know that getting 110% into something means you're trying to strive for that one extra repetition. You can get 10, but you want to get 11. You can get 12, but you want to get 14, right? You get, let's say basketball, you get 10 free throws in, but you want to get 11. Then you want to get 12. So it's always important that we're striving for our personal best, and that way we're keeping ourselves focused. We're keeping our goal in mind. That's that vision that we want to have, is which another part of the exercise science crash course. And of course, our development with you is the victory blueprint, and vision is the V part, right? So now we talked about how they develop. Now we want to recognize the signs of a muscle imbalance, okay? It could be a muscle imbalance, as I said, is you're actually doing a strengthening or a mobility thing and you feel like you can't move properly because there's a weakness on one side. So like if you're skating and you try to cut to one side and you can't hold that edge, but the other side's fine. You can cut and hold that edge, no problem when you're skating. So that skating and cutting on that edge, that's what's called a stability or muscle imbalance, a strengthening movement position that is possibly from the side of your hip down to the edge. So it could be anywhere in between. It could be your calf, it could be your hip. So we want to recognize that when you're trying to do something and perform properly, that you have a muscle imbalance there, because you can do it on one side, but you can't do it on the other. We also might see that in a joint strain. So a lot of times we get into a joint that, oh, that's sore in the joint. Well, there's so many muscles around that deltoid on the outside, but there's also the pectoral muscles and the scapular muscles, everything around that shoulder that has to be holding properly in order for the deltoids to move properly and to tighten in properly. So there's joint discomfort. Hopefully it's not too much pain. And obviously those are sometimes those ones that we need to seek some help on. Okay, so we're recognizing the signs. Now the last part about it is the strength training on how to fix it. So in strength training on how to fix it, we have to come up with a plan. Okay, so the plan is that we want you to focus on potentially 4 exercises, right? 4 exercises that you're going to do enough repetitions of that you create mind muscle memory, right? You tell that muscle to tighten and it tightens. You tell that muscle to squeeze and it squeezes. You can directly affect the control of that muscle by doing enough repetitions. So with our 4 exercises, we want you to target. That's going to mean that it's going to be 4 sets, 12 repetitions each, right? 12 repetitions each of 4 sets is 48 repetitions. So that makes sure that you have done enough repetitions that you've actually effectively moved the muscle that many times and tightened the muscles that many times that you can feel it has gained muscle control. And again, you're using proper progression and proper targeting, and you're using proper speed and tempo. So we use a 3-3 muscle finder method, right? That's where we go 3 seconds on tightening the muscle and 3 seconds on opening the muscle back up. So whether it's a bicep muscle, 3 seconds on tightening and 3 seconds on opening, or 3 seconds on flexing the chest or the shoulder or the hamstring, or even the calf muscle. If you have to tighten those calf muscle, you want to raise that heel off the ground 3 seconds. 2 and 3, tighten it firm and lower it down slow. 2, 3. That gives us that 6-second round trip. Every 10 repetitions is 60 seconds, gives you enough time to develop that mitochondria development in there. That mitochondria is the power packs in there. You'll probably been hearing that word often. And that makes sure that you're stimulating and you're getting the mechanical flexion, flexing and feeling the squeezing, feeling the releasing. It's the mechanical repetitions that creates protein synthesis signals. Okay, the signal for protein synthesis is that mTOR. That you don't have to remember that, but that mechanical flexion and releasing, and your control of that. That's what signals that muscle response of protein building. Okay, we all have that protein genetics, that P genetics, protein genetics. It's called epigenetics or protein genetics, is what I call it. So that if you flex properly and you tighten properly on those muscles, then you're going to end up having the muscles respond and start to build better muscles. Okay, we can build better muscles anyway. You've seen everybody do it of every walk of life, anywhere around the world. You have the capacity in your genetics of P genetics, protein genetics, to effectively move the muscle properly and then go ahead and build a stronger muscle. And that's what we want for you here with the Exercise Science Crash Course, is always focusing on making sure that you're doing them properly to get real life results. Okay, real life results come when you do it right. Okay, so we've gone through some of the phases of in the tips to make sure that you know how to use strength training, the 3-3 muscle finder method, the M3 3-3 muscle finder method. You've got the Exercise Science Crash Course right here at mymusclememory.com, and you can find the link right here. And all of these things maintain, and obviously if you really enjoy this video, this podcast, you subscribe to this, share it with others. And we're giving you all these tips to make sure that you gain that control, you gain that strength, you gain that confidence and empowerment. The empowerment comes from your working out, your breathing, your strengthening. You know it's happening. You can feel the muscles work. And then, of course, in order to have that muscle respond, it is eating properly, the nutrition right afterwards, within 2 hours, eating, that 20 grams of protein, eating a good meal. Make sure you have, the appropriate amount of sleep and rest. So let's get to it. I hope you liked all this tips on muscle imbalances and overcoming them. And let me know in any questions or comments you might have, and you can reach us again right here. Thank you so much, and look forward to seeing you on the next episode.